Welcome to episode 265 of Sports Geek. On this week's Startup Series episode, I chat with Adam Hyman from Sportility.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who is speaking on a stage near you soon, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and I am looking forward to speaking on a stage soon. I'm actually booked in to be speaking at the VMAs in May, Venue Managers Association here in Australia. My name is Sean Callanan. You can find me here on the podcast, which will be housed at sportsgeekhq.com and on all good social media platforms. You can find me at Sean Callanan at SportsGeek. You can find the podcast on all good podcasting apps, whether it is Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or my favourite, Pocket Casts. Before we jump into this episode, don't forget, if you've got a question, if there's something you'd like to dive in further on the podcast, don't forget, send in a question for the Q&A episodes that happen every Friday. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/questions if you want to be part of the Q&A podcast. And also, if you want to support everything that we're doing in creating sports business content across newsletters and podcasts, you can do so via our Patreon campaign. Simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. You can do that at a personal level for as little as $4 a month. If you enjoy the podcast, if you're getting value, I'd love your support. And if you are a brand or a sports tech brand or someone that wants to reach sports business executives that listen to this podcast, you can do so as a silver or gold supporter with our Patreon campaign and amplify your brand with the Sports Geek podcast, the newsletter, and via my socials. So go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Now, here is my chat with Adam Hyman from Sportility as part of our Sports Startup Series. Very happy to have the co-founder and CEO of Sportility, Adam Hyman. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Sean. Happy to be here and pleasure to be on the Sports Geek podcast.
Terrific. So before we dive into the Sportility story and what it's doing in the sports startup space, what's your background? How did you end up in a sports startup and being a co-founder of a sports startup?
Yeah, look, I think my background's really come from being entrenched and engaged in sports since I could pretty much walk. I grew up playing basketball in Sydney, had a real love for basketball. And I guess if you had have met me when I was a teenager, all I wanted to do was be an NBA superstar. But I guess being white, 5'11", and a kid from the North Shore maybe might have had me kind of pegged on the lower end of that spectrum. So yeah, I've kind of found myself following my dreams and my passion for sports and really solving a bit of a problem with what we're doing with Sportility.
So other than the fact that you're probably too early before this analytics era where three-point shooters are more valued and that NBA dream probably could have been there, what from a business point of view, like what roles were you in? Were you diving into sports roles? Were you working for sports clubs? Yeah. Was the passion for sport there, or were you working in regular businesses? What was your work history?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I came out of a basketball scholarship in the United States and sort of came back with not really wanting to get into the typical 9 to 5, and I was actually kind of starting out in my career, and I built a basketball club in St Ives, which is in the upper North Shore of Sydney for those listeners that aren't from Sydney. And there wasn't any basketball that was provided in that area. I found myself traveling 20 minutes or 30 minutes to the nearest association. And I found myself in a catchment area that I could really provide a product and service to kids in that area that wanted to play the sport. And I built a basketball club that solved a problem, just purely focusing on the skill and development that at the time Basketball New South Wales wasn't really focusing on. They were more seeing themselves as an umbrella body. And I sort of had my love for basketball, and I ran one-on-one personal training sessions. I ran coaching sessions. We would do skill and development clinics and gala days and those sorts of things. And at that time, I was dealing with a lot of apparel suppliers, but also a lot of online retailers. And actually, for that particular club, I had to raise a lot of funding for the club. So the first thing that I did was I actually built an apparel company, because I was dealing with a lot of the apparel suppliers that would more often than not overpromise and underdeliver. And essentially that's really what I set out to solve while I was running my club. And I guess that kind of took off from there. We just really focused on taking the administration away from collecting names, numbers, sizes, and payments. And I kind of sold off my basketball club and pursued the apparel journey. And then as I kind of dove down that rabbit hole, it led me on to this idea that every club that I was dealing with had a big problem with funding, which led to the Sportility problem.
So you were effectively solving the problem that you had yourself, and those who've run their own basketball teams or soccer teams or those kind of things, especially at that grassroots level. It's like you've got 10 guys, they all need a jersey, they need a version that looks like a Bulls. My university team that's been running for now 21 years, was a bit Bulls, and we just had Chicago Bulls jerseys with our different numbers and different names on the back. And it's you just go to one of many providers. You were just finding that system a bit clunky.
Yeah, clunky, and I guess a bit of a cottage industry, to be honest. It was, if I had to do any graphic design, or if I had to collect any names, numbers, sizes, and payments from any of my club members to actually purchase my gear with any of these apparel suppliers, it just took months for us to actually even get to that process. So, initially that's what I set out to do, was just to just take all that administration away, solve that problem, make it just easier, and take it into, I guess, the 21st century with a bit of technology. And look, I mean, that was my first business that I launched out of the bedroom of my parents' house. It was called Team Clothing Co. And that, is what kind of led me to where I am today.
So Team Clothing Co. being a sports apparel business.
Yeah.
So explain to the listeners what Sportility is, because it's not like it's not just that, and how it is what differentiate it from other apparel businesses. Why is it a sports technology startup? So what's the pitch, and how do you explain Sportility to people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, through our journey, we were seeing that Team Clothing Co. was growing. We had about 10,000 members on the platform, because we were really focused on solving the problem from administration and dealing one-to-one with the consumer. But one thing that we kept on hearing was that problem around, hey, look, we're not having the price conversation with you because we want to. It's because we have to. We need funding. We need sponsorship. If you guys can sponsor us, that'd be great. And at the time, my co-founder and I had raised a little bit of capital to kind of expedite the Team Clothing Co. business. And what we did was we sat with all of our customers and we just asked them, what are the problems, other than teamwear, what are the problems that you face in your business that we might be able to solve? And the number one problem that kept on coming up with our grassroots sporting club customers was that they needed sponsorship and funding. And then the other side of our marketplace, we had a lot of corporates, so a lot of brands that were needing teamwear and apparel. And the number one problem that came up from them as well, we asked the same questions, was basically, if you've got 10,000 members on your platform, you've barely done any marketing, how can we really get our brand in front of your customers? Because we love to market to grassroots sports. And that's really where we had our aha moment, which enabled us to kind of rebranded, relaunched to a business called Sportility, which really enables grassroots sporting clubs to go online with our platform, create a profile, design their gear in 3D, and then literally click a sponsor logo to reduce the cost of their teamwear. So saving that time from chasing up brands to get funding or trying to find a brand to get sponsorship or funding. We do that all for the sports clubs, and it reduces the cost of their teamwear. On the other side, it allows brands to provide offers and incentives to grassroots sports, but also help fund grassroots sports at scale, and really build up what we're calling grassroots sports advocates.
Yeah, so it is I guess that's that effectively two-sided marketplace. You're not just saying here's a click and collect way to build jerseys and get them. You're also offering that sponsor side for able to reduce, like you said, to reduce on a per item basis, to say, oh yes, we've got this sponsor on board. That way our jerseys are cheaper, and they could either, as a club, they could just either pass that on, or they can keep the jerseys at the prices that they're used to paying, and it actually becomes revenue into the club because they're getting the cost of the jerseys down on every unit.
Yeah, you're spot on, and that's where we're seeing a real growth area in our consumer side of our marketplace, in the online stores becoming something that is somewhat of a revenue generating and a cost center for grassroots sporting clubs that traditionally found it difficult to generate any form of profit out of merchandise, because with this model, there's no upfront costs, no capital expenditure, and because, like you said, they're keeping the prices at what their consumers are used to paying, the first product they sell becomes a profit-generating product. And that's somewhat unique for grassroots sports, and something that we're proud to help provide an additional funding mechanism for grassroots sports.
So getting into this, that's the technology play, the matching and the availability of sponsors and the building of the merchandise, the funding experience and raising. You spoke a little bit about raising capital, and you've got some big names now that are investors into Sportility. Tell us a little bit about how that process has gone and some of the investors you've been lucky enough to get on board.
Yeah, look, I like every startup. The capital raising process is a grueling one, and it's something that we've constantly made many mistakes, but also learned some valuable lessons throughout that process. But for us, we're fortunate to close a capital raise with a combination of high net wealth investors, elite athletes, and then some venture capital and private equity. Some notable investors being Andrew Bogut and Josh Childress, both NBA superstars, and huge supporters of what we're looking to do and solve the problem here in Australia, but also globally. And I guess that journey with Andrew Bogut was I guess quite a surreal one, to be honest. We found ourselves on Waikiki Beach in Hawaii when the Sydney Kings were playing the LA Clippers in that exhibition NBA NBLX campaign, and really pitching the opportunity. And actually, it was presented to us by our advisory board member Jeff Van Groningen, and at the time he was the general manager of the Kings. He said to us, "Look, we're going to get Andrew Bogut on board," and my business partner Dan Hishani and I kind of looked at each other and said, surely that's not going to happen. Still early stage. We were scaling, but we didn't think we were at that level yet. Sure enough, we found ourselves on Waikiki Beach in a Starbucks of all places of the hotel that the Kings were staying at, pitching Sportility to Andrew Bogut, and it was a fantastic opportunity to share our business journey, but also what the impact that we can have in grassroots sports via someone like Andrew. But more importantly, someone that's also gone through that journey. And yes, he's a number one NBA draft pick, but like every athlete, he went through the journey too.
He's still a boy from Endeavour Hills, and he started playing basketball in Dandenong. So he understands that he would have gone through that as a 8 to 14 before he sort of got picked up in the system. It is a good story. Like I know Jeff and the work he's done at the Kings. I knew him from his days at the Tigers. Like it sort of does say even though you felt you weren't ready, like when those it's a bit of a shoot the shot when you get it. And have that conversation, because guys like Andrew Bogut would be getting pitched all the time because like a lot of startups are just seeing him as a big bag of money. What was those initial conversations? Was the guard up initially from the big bogey?
No, look, I think, early on we really presented ourselves from an element of impact and respect for Andrew's brand.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of the athletes that do get pitched, and like you say, being seen as a big bag of money. We certainly didn't see it that way. We certainly saw it as more of a collaboration and a mutual value exchange in terms of, Andrew has a fantastic brand in Australian sports, but also has a huge opportunity to give back to an industry or a market that has done so much for him in Australia as well. So we kind of saw that as a mutual value exchange. In his brand, but also from our brand point of view, aligning with someone that really does want to kind of change the face of basketball in Australia, and aligning us to a brand of that nature allows us to kind of position ourselves as an organization that is also trying to change the face of sport in Australia.
Yep.
So we certainly didn't see it as a transactional relationship, which I think is what certainly allowed us to kind of set ourselves apart from the crowd. And Andrew came back to us after that first pitch and sort of said, hey, what does it look like? I know you guys are just talking about an investment here, but what does it look like if I'm an ambassador of the business? And as you know, and as you would have seen in the media, Andrew's now an ambassador of the brand publicly. Which was something that says to us that we kind of really approached it in that respectful nature of his brand.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's sort of it fit into his narrative as well, like coming back to Australia, wanting to support the NBL and the scene here, putting down roots and supporting things. He'd been investing in different businesses in the Valley when he was with the Warriors and those kind of things, but it's also got to work, for him. And I guess you couldn't probably get a better, ambassador for what you're trying to do. Because when Andrew Bogut speaks, a lot of the media are definitely in this market are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've certainly seen that in the growth and also the brand partnerships as well. The likes of, neo lenders and startups all the way through to your traditional bricks and mortar retail coming on board, given that alignment with a figure like Andrew. And 2020 certainly is an exciting one with some new brand partnerships due to be announced in March.
Yep.
Off the back of some of the strong growth that we had with the brand over the course of last year.
And so now that you've got that investment and it gives you some runway, but as in startup land, that's all it gives you. It gives you runway to get to the next point. What does your team look like now internally? What's the balance between operations, helping teams get their gear, versus we've also got to keep the business development going and bringing more sponsors on to keep the balance, which is always the challenge in building out that marketplace. How you split your resources across those two pillars of your business?
Yeah, I think in any startup, there's going to be many people wearing many hats.
Yep.
And I guess to make it even more complicated, we're in a double-sided marketplace startup. So.
Yep.
The traditional double-sided marketplace problem is, chicken and egg. Do you solve the supply side first or the demand side first? For us, we solved the supply side first. We've got a very heavy focus, and ongoing we'll always have a very heavy focus in terms of resource around the grassroots sports side of our marketplace, which we see as the demand side of our marketplace. So a team of business development managers going in and really building those relationships with grassroots sporting clubs, not so much just focused around teamwear, but more so around what brands they want to align to, what organizations they want to be partnering with, and how we can continue to drive more participation within that organization through brand partnerships. And then a small percentage of our business, on a kind of 1-to-3 ratio. So 1 being on the brand side, 3 being on the grassroots sporting club side. We're focused on building out brand partnerships on a slower basis, more focused on more value from the brand. So more valuable brands and also more valuable perks to drive a better relationship, rather than just flooding the marketplace with a huge number of brands that clubs and teams don't get any value out of, and there's no one-to-one connection, and it's a valuable experience. But then the added complexity of our business is we still manufacture and distribute gear. So a large proportion of our business, around 40 to 50% of our business today, is actually the operational side. So graphic design, the customer success side and account management side, all the way through to we've got an in-house garment engineering and pick, pack and dispatch or logistics side of our business. And then we're a tech company. So we've got an in-house development team as well. So all in all, there's lots of people wearing many hats. And I guess that's also a bit of a testament to where the growth has come from last year. We won the Startup of the Year award with the AAAA. We were kind of named as the finalist in the Startup of the Year category for the My Business Awards. And then we grew to nudging on 90-odd thousand members on the platform. So that's all kind of testament to the internal team, where we've got a lot of people wearing many hats and really passionate about solving this problem for sponsorship in grassroots sports.
Yes, definitely. So one of the things, the reason I did want to get you on the podcast and have a chat is because over the past 12 months, we've been working together and on the esports business with Gravitas, and like what you're doing. I came to you guys after, in probably around this time last year, or probably a little bit early in the year.
Yeah, I think it was on the back of announcing Andrew, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it probably was. But I was, I had a new esports team, and then I needed jerseys, and so I went through the system, and I know different people in different apparel companies, and I said, I've got a new team. I want to be able to launch a jersey, and I want to be able to sell the jersey, and it was and I was a startup esport. Gravitas was a startup esport. Some of the responses I was getting was, send us through your deck of what you want, or here's our minimum order. And I couldn't find the right product of what I wanted, both to have my guys kitted out, but then also I was looking at what does the merchandise membership idea look like, because I had some definitive ideas of what we wanted to do with Gravitas, and what we wanted to do was to be able to launch a membership product that was relatively merchandise heavy, to allow people to get all the merch in one pack and those kind of things. But I just couldn't get anyone to say, yes, we can do that without the big outlay of cost. So that started the introduction and the conversation with you guys, and then Split 2 we launched with 7 different jerseys for the split, and had a different jersey for every different opponent, which freaked out the audience and freaked out the commentators were like, what's going on at Gravitas? They're turning up with a new jersey, and
sweet,
and that wouldn't have been possible without your platform to be able to do the on demand. Hey, what do you want now? Minimum order or maximum order quantities, flexibility that you have with the platform. But then also to do stuff around, hey, we want to build out this membership product and that kind of stuff. Like it's been, from my side of seeing the tech and even if we are, a slightly different use case than your standard one, we've been really pleased with what we've been able to do so far, and getting all of our guys in jerseys. We've just got our 2020 photos back with the boys in the Gravitas jersey, but it's been really good so far, and sort of going through some of those backwards and forwards.
Yeah, and I think more than ever, going through the edge case scenarios like what you're saying is a proof in the pudding with the model, to say that the traditional grassroots sporting clubs that need an online store and don't quite need that high level of demand that you have, it really does solve that problem. And I guess from my point of view, it'd be interesting to hear how successful it has been for you guys. From a sales point of view and also, I guess from an awareness point of view as well.
Yeah, so I think because, again, what I saw in the market, and this is from an esports point of view, we would see people go, "Hey, here's our merch," and they would, release a hoodie, and they would sell out, right? So 100 Thieves is one of the biggest brands in esports, and they keep doing these esports. Like they keep saying, "Here we go, we're dropping them," and they sell out in 45 minutes.
Yep.
And that's great. But I'm like, if you can keep selling, why wouldn't you keep selling?
Correct.
And so most esports teams are following that model. Oh, we're going to buy $10,000 worth of merchandise and we're going to sell it for $12,000 to $15,000 or $20,000. And there's a lot of hassle in doing that order, getting that order, the logistics of getting it, and there's a bit of hope you sell it.
Sure.
And we like that idea, but we didn't have the database or fan base to 100 Thieves to go, here you go, 100,000 fans. Oh, it's real limited edition. It's dropped. It's done. We're good. And we didn't also have the capital to say, hey, we want to run. We want to do that. So that's where you guys gave us that flexibility, that on demand thing. There's things we want to do. So we launched that membership product, which no one's ever done before. We did learn some really cool things along the way. So the membership product had merchandise. We had some services in there, so you could play versus the players and play against the coaches and get some advice, and then some experience stuff, so you get tickets to MEO and things like that. And the value proposition, like our top end membership for a 6-month-old esports team was $1,000.
Wow.
Right? And we had a mid-sized one of just merch, which was like 7 jerseys, a hoodie, a hat, a T-shirt, coach, which was $7.99, and we had a low-end one at $4.99. And we deliberately put them out there to say, hey, here's what the prices were. The feedback from people was value-wise, it was awesome. Like when they did all the sums, they're like, I'm getting 7 jerseys and I'm getting this and I'm getting a hoodie. They're like, yeah, pricing-wise, it's good and right. Now, what we've got to do going forward is build more further with our fan base and grow our database so more people buy it.
Yeah.
Right, which is, that's, back chicken or egg, we're going to get the fans. One of the things we're going to try to work on this year is a lot of them said, oh, we'd like to buy it. Can we use Afterpay? Can we use these other methods? And the feedback we got from them, which we could have done, because we included services in our membership offer, like, oh, you get to play a player or you get a coaching session with one of our coaches, they don't allow that in their terms of that type of payment. They only use it on products.
Interesting.
So we like the idea, and the appetite for it was good. I think the tweak of the product will be, what's a membership merchandise only product that allows Afterpay look like? I think we'll get a stronger take up. And we'll probably move the coaching and player services into free add-ons that aren't part of the offer, so we get through the terms of service. So I think there's some stuff there, and then I think we will move to creating and we locked all of our merch in the membership offer. Like we didn't launch a shop because we said the only way you're getting these jerseys are in this membership.
in the membership pack.
Right. And so I think this year we will do something in a shop, on a Sportility shop, but it will be only those types of items and keeping them, this is the only way to get them and those kind of things, and play around with what they are. But, and that's the flexibility we've got with you guys. We can say, oh, cool, this is our shop. Only these things are on our shop. Only these things are on our shop for this week. Like, so we can do a merch drop and, send a bunch of people. They all buy the hoodie and your system will just pick it up. And if we sell 200 hoodies, we'll get 200 hoodies. If we sell 1,000 hoodies, we'll sell, there's no, we'll be creating the limits, not like the manufacturer, which is what's happening in other regions. So like that, it's been a really interesting exercise, good feedback.
It's great to see that you're getting that feedback, and it has been a relatively it hasn't been an admin heavy process. It's really been a process where you can be flexible and nimble and get a good read on exactly what your membership base wants, as opposed to kind of being jammed into jamming a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. So normally what you see is, at the end of the year, there's, hey guys, here's all these things on sale. We didn't sell them.
Correct.
We haven't done any of that.
Correct.
Because that's we've got to get rid of this. Got to get rid of this merch because it's this year's merch. We may as well give it away. And so it creates from a fan point of view. They just wait. They just go, oh, that's a $70 hoodie. I'm not going to buy it. I'll buy it for $25 in December. And it's like, that's a terrible business model because you're taking a bath on that type of stuff. So I think there's a few options in that space. Good to get feedback. Good thing is we had sales in Perth. We had someone buy one in Detroit, and same. It doesn't matter where our fans come from, and that's the beauty of esports. So looking forward to seeing what it goes to. Into the next level, being able to do specific custom jerseys for a week. I really want to do a jersey for a sponsor specifically, or do a community. I'm always scouring the internet for those minor league baseball, and all those quirky licensing type jerseys. I'd love to do so. Whether it be a SpongeBob jersey or whatever. Like, you see all these different jerseys that get done in minor league baseball. I'd love to see the Gravitas boys walk up on stage with a quirky jersey, knowing that we could just give you guys a call and put an order in, and they'll be in it in 4 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, I think the other thing as well is the opportunity that you have now with the access to those brand partners. I would imagine, knowing that you've got your existing brand partners and the collaboration that we do provide with your existing brand partners and the brand partners that we've already got, certainly increases that exposure and that brand value for Gravitas, but also, the overall organization.
Yeah, definitely. So what are other than helping Gravitas sell a ton of merch in 2020, right? What are the plans for Sportility in 2020, and what do you got on the agenda for the year ahead?
Yeah, look, I think this year is probably going to be one of the biggest years for us. I think, we spent 2018 laying a lot of the foundations and really building out and proving out the model. And last year we spent quite a bit of time kind of scaling into new markets, being across Australia. So we're now in all major capital cities, and we're in 14 sports, 40 odd brands on the platform. So we kind of really had a good year last year and increased our revenue pretty significantly. And this year is really around increasing the brand value and brand partnerships for our consumers. So the likes of national and global brands coming on board with the platform. Obviously, as then they're yet to be announced. I can't name any names yet, but there's some really exciting brands that are really getting behind that building of an advocacy piece within, whether it be an esports team or whether it be, esports leagues or right the way through to traditional sports and sponsoring teams that would more often than not get overlooked, whether it's in regional Australia or metropolitan Australia. So it's really around building those brand partnerships and activating. Yes, we've done quite a bit of media with Sportility around our ambassadors and what we're doing from a platform point of view, but traditionally we haven't done too much marketing. So this year it's really around letting the world know who our brand partners are, how they can get access to sponsorship and funding, how they can really generate revenue through their club, and more importantly, the exciting part that's on the horizon for us is having an ex-NBA champion from Golden State Warriors and an NBA veteran based out of California, where we're very heavily focused on what Sportility looks like in the United States, and scaling into the US.
Yeah, terrific. I mean, they're really the opportunity on that brand side, because you've got brands that want to that are doing national deals with a sport and saying we want to run a community program. You're there saying, well, hang on, guys, I've got all the teams in your sport out in the community. This is the platform for you guys to activate and really lock in that relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's really around that trickle down effect. I think traditionally, you look at a program like, the Aldi Roos programs or the Now Kick programs, and those programs are great. They provide a national kind of grassroots feeder program into sports, but it doesn't actually trickle down into the club. So yes, a brand can come along and say, hey, we sponsor the national program for the AFL, but a lot of that money doesn't actually go into the clubs. And from our point of view, we kind of see, I guess, a disruption in that model, being able to allow a national brand to say, well, no, we want to run a national campaign, but we want our money to go directly to those clubs and increase the ability for those clubs to operate, to have better facilities, to have better teamwear, and continue to kind of increase the ability for that club to be competitive in their particular market. But also, it's a complete disruption in the model, because any individual that is playing sports and wants to be a professional athlete, they can technically go through our platform, design their own merchandise range, create their own logo with us, but through our we've got an in-house graphic design team. It costs $99 to create their own logo. They could have their own logo like Tiger Woods or Rafael Nadal, and essentially sell their own merchandise with the brands that are on our platform to their social media community. So it's not just bound to an organization, it's really bound to the individual. And that's really what we're focused on is the funding of everyone in grassroots sports. So that's what this year is about, is bringing those national and global brand partners to the masses.
And I think, given the current environmental situation, and there would be a lot of grassroots clubs that have been affected by the bushfires that are unfortunately still going and have been for many weeks, and they're the lifeblood of Australian communities, especially in the rural part of the world. There's going to be a lot of work needed to be done to help rebuild those clubs. So it's definitely a place that you can play in, and there will be brands that want to reach out and help, and I guess that you're offering them a platform to do that.
Yeah, you're spot on, and I was commenting on a dialogue in LinkedIn with the CMO of Optus and a number of different prominent business people around how we can all band together as businesses in the Australian business community to support bushfire affected sports clubs. Some of them have lost their facilities, their sports grounds, equipment, merchandise, those sorts of things. So there's a huge opportunity for not just our platform, but the wider business community as a baseline in Australia anyway, to support the sporting community.
Speaking of community, tell us a little bit about the sports venture community that you're developing in Sydney.
Yeah, look, I'm amazed that you've come across that. We haven't actually put any comms out and any communication to anyone yet, but we did a little bit of a soft launch, and this is something that kind of came off the back of my philosophy on giving back to a community that's given so much to me, but also starting to foster a bit of an ecosystem here in Australia around sports technology. So. Yep. The sports venture community is really designed to connect the sports community here in Australia with the world. And the way that we're doing that is with a co-working space or a physical location here in Sydney in Crow's Nest to provide a vehicle for Australian sports tech companies that are either single founders or solo founders, all the way through to global companies that are coming out of whether it be the UK or the US and placing siloed sports tech companies or divisions of their business into Australia and providing a collaborative experience where those companies can connect with like-minded businesses, advice around capital raising, any events that might be run. So if you were to think of it like anything, it's a bit like a WeWork model. Meets a stone and chalk for the fin services space, and really providing a collaborative ecosystem. So today we did a little bit of a soft launch later last year with a couple of sports tech startups. We've already got 8 businesses in the space, which is great. Doing some great partnerships with the Australian Sports Technologies Network, so ASTN. And looking to grow that out this year. So stay tuned for any more public announcements.
All right. Well, I'll have to check it out next time I'm in Sydney.
Awesome.
So wrap things up with the Sports Geek closing 5. You said you're a big basketball guy. Do you remember the first sports event you attended? Was it a basketball game?
Mate, you are spot on. It was a basketball game. I was fortunate when I was growing up. My uncle actually played for the Sydney Kings. He's now a commentator on the NBL, Brad Rosen, and I grew up being immersed in basketball. So I've been told by my parents when I was 2 years old, I was in the capsule, under the seats at the entertainment center while they watched Brad play. Yeah. And then, the game that I remember is sitting at the entertainment center when the Kings were, kind of on those. Well, they've always been the Violet Cumberals, but not so much this season. Or it might look like that, but. Just at the entertainment center when I was about 4 years old. We used to sit behind the row behind Mike Wroblewski, and there's a newspaper clipping that I've kept in my office that kind of inspires me ongoing. With Mike Wroblewski, screaming at the Kings team, and me sitting right there behind him as
back in the Bob Turner days with Dwayne McClain and Tim Morrissey and the like.
Leon Trimmingham and those sorts of guys. So that was kind of my first sports event and my experience. And,
if you went to one of those games the Melbourne Tigers were playing, there's every chance I would have been there yelling at Dwayne McClain. So as a Tigers fan, so the heyday, which is now being relived with the resurgence of the NBL, and they're doing a great job with helped by Andrew Bogut's return. So you would have been to a few sports events these days. Do you have a favourite food memory or a go-to food when you're in a sports event?
Yeah, I have. I was, I think, somewhat controversially. For me, it's popcorn. But when I'm in the States, it's caramel popcorn. You can't go past the caramel popcorn stand. And when I was at Oracle Arena last year for the NBA Finals, it was something I couldn't go past. So yeah, that's my favorite food of sporting event.
Cool. What's the first app you open in the morning?
Look, it used to be Facebook. However, and I'm sure it's the app of choice for many. Yeah. However, being a CEO of a sports tech company, I've found myself being obsessed and opening up our app, internal, or our company internal app. Just literally first thing in the morning, check our sales, check any brand partner performance and activity across the app, whether it's new designs or new users. So that's the first thing I open up in the morning.
So your dashboard of all things Sportility.
Correct.
That's fair enough. Is there someone that you follow or read, either be a colleague or an author or something, or a journalist that you think the podcast listeners should follow, and why?
Yeah, look, I was on a podcast earlier on this year, and I find him really, really interesting. He really delves into some really interesting concepts around founder health and the challenges of running a startup. So the first one that I'd say for people to follow is Words with Oz. Really, really interesting guy, and he's done he's built an amazing podcast there around the startup journey and the founder journey. And another podcast that I listen to regularly is Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman.
Reid Hoffman, from the founder of LinkedIn.
Yeah, so another really, really interesting podcast. One thing that I didn't really go into too much detail there when you asked my business history, but while I was setting up Sportility, which was at the time my side hustle, I was working at LinkedIn, and I was fortunate enough to be in that transitional period when Reid Hoffman was transitioning over to Jeff Weiner. So I was fortunate enough to see both Reid and Jeff speak in an all hands meeting, both very inspirational people. So yeah, that's a podcast that I follow religiously, and is a great one for anyone that's out there looking to work out how you scale your startup.
Terrific. You might have spoiled the result, but you've given us some hints. What social media platform is your MVP?
Yeah, look, I think being a LinkedIn ex-employee, but also a massive fan of what they've been able to do from a network effects point of view, when you look at the business side of their concept, LinkedIn's my number one. Everything from, you get the best of both, I guess, Instagram and Facebook, but it's, it can have a commercial element. And I think at the end of the day, that's really what media should be from a social perspective. And from my perspective, they do a good job of that. And that's really how I've driven the sales and the growth of our business as well.
So where can people find you on the internet? What's the best way for people to reach out to you, Adam?
Yeah, look, I think I'm like I said, a big LinkedIn user. So at Hyman.Adam is my LinkedIn username. You can find me on Instagram, just very generic at Adam Hyman. And then from a contact point of view, you can reach out to adam@sportility.co.
Well, terrific. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. We'll have links to those. All the things Sportility and links to your LinkedIn. As always, I ask people, if you've listened to this podcast and got some value, please send Adam a note. Tell him that you listened. And even better, if you've got a team, a local basketball or a football or a soccer team, and you're looking for jerseys, Sportility is where you want to check out. Get you guys some fresh gear. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do in 2020 with Gravitas. But thanks for coming on the podcast, Adam.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. And likewise, looking forward to building and continuing to sell many, many Sports Geek and also Gravitas merchandise.
Cheers, man.
New workshops on audience, content, distribution, valuation, and pitch following Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process. Go to digitaltodollars.com.
Thanks again to Adam Hyman. You can connect with him on LinkedIn, as he said there, Hyman. Or you can send him a tweet, Adam_Hyman, Hyman on Twitter, or check out Sportility. As I said on the podcast, we're lucky enough to be using Sportility as our merchandise and uniform supplier for Gravitas. and been very effective in us being able to launch membership and merchandise offers without putting that outlay of buying many, many hoodies or many, many jerseys that I don't know if we're going to sell or not. So please check out gravitas.gg, sign up. The team is starting the next season, the 2020 season, Split 1. It starts on Friday night. So check that out. Go to gravitas.gg, GG meaning good game in the esports space. Sign up and stay in touch with Gravitas. Would love to have some of the listeners of the Sports Geek podcast jump on board as Gravitas members when we launch the membership product very shortly. And maybe we'll see you repping a Gravitas Sportility jersey. You can find all the links that Adam talked about and links to Sportility and everything on his socials by going to sportsgeekhq/265. Before we jump off, just a few things of what we've been doing recently and some of the things we're kicking off. One of the things we are doing is some grassroots, and it really ties in well with what Adam was talking about, some grassroots club training. We've partnered with the guys at Football West. Thank you very much to Trent Barron to set up a digital education program for NPL and State League clubs to lift the digital bar and give them some of the insights that I've been lucky enough to be able to share with professional teams in what they can do in the digital space to lift the bar, better connect with fans, and also deliver for sponsors. So we've done a digital capacity survey of all the teams to know what the landscape looks like, how well do they know their digital assets, what kind of digital architecture do they have in place, what do they control their website, who updates their website, who's updating their socials, those kind of things. And then we're going to run 6 sessions online webinars effectively for the clubs and their volunteers or full-time staff, whether they be the staff that are working in the sponsorship commercial side of the business and a part of the club, which again we spoke about with Adam, how do they bring revenue in to keep the club afloat, but then also who have they got to do the digital side of things. And we're seeing a lot more grassroots clubs sort of following the lead of professional teams and producing graphics for results and reaching out to the fans and using the same platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and the like. So we're going to have 6 sessions. The first one's going to kick off actually this Wednesday if you're listening. The first one's going to be about understanding digital audiences. Then the following week we're going to do one on developing a content plan for grassroots sports. And then the following one will be tying the digital and the sponsorship piece together, how they can go about selling their digital assets, whether it's a new jersey reveal or a roster release or a big finals campaign, those kind of things, how they can connect the objectives of their sponsors. And then we'll dive in a little bit on specific platforms. So we're going to do a whole session on maximising returns and growth of your Facebook audience. And then additionally do one looking at building a community on Instagram. And then the last session, I'm actually going to sort of open up the Sports Geek toolbox and take them through some of the tools that they can use to be efficient and productive, because time and resources are of small quantity in grassroots sport. But what tools can they use to, I guess, level up their game, but then also understand what they're actually doing? So really looking forward to kicking that off with the teams from Football West. I'll be doing it online after hours because, again, most of the people who are working in grassroots clubland have got jobs, so I'll be doing them after hours. But really looking forward to getting their feedback. So if you've got a local league or teams that you would like a similar program for, where we can again raise the bar and rising tides lift all boats, so I can throw out all the cliches there, please reach out to me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. So that's on the club side, the grassroots club side. Then the other side of it is sort of moving into winter seasons is athlete digital training. So group training with professional athletes to give them a bit of a refresher course on what is available for them from a digital point of view, some of the things they need to be looking out for in handling trolls and feedback and those kind of things, but then also some real critical parts of understanding privacy, making sure they're protecting their family and friends But then also looking at the commercial side, how can they develop a following that sponsors will want to work with, and then also what they should be selling if they wanted to sell their posts for, whether it's to get a few free meals or some contra deals and the like, or actually good old hard-fashioned cash. We found that athletes will get that training potentially from a league or a players association at the start of their career when they're a 16, 17, 18-year-old. And they don't actually get that refresher year on year when we're seeing new platforms being added. TikTok has now risen. We're seeing new apps being added all the time. People are signing up for Byte, which is the latest Vine-like 6-second looping video. So these new platforms are being added, and then platforms that people have been using are changing. The algorithm's changing. The usage of it's changing. I do think athletes do need that refresher, and I think the advantage of giving them that refresher is, one, they start becoming more active again, they start diving into platforms they maybe stopped using, and then it also provides a bit better connectivity with the content that you're producing from a club point of view, and they get a bit more engaged with that content, potentially seeing the opportunity to grow their fan base. So again, if you're interested in that kind of training, it can be done in person, in a group setting, or an online setting. It can be done with a whole group, or even one of the other things we're doing is helping develop digital leadership groups. So picking 4 or 5 athletes that are in your playing group that have a strong passion for the digital side of the business. They might have a partner that's really active on Instagram, those kind of things, that they want to develop their online presence, and effectively appointing them as your digital leaders, and is another effective way to get some really good conversation happening amongst the playing group. What we also find as an outcome of these kind of sessions is a player-driven rules and policy and a fine system in some cases, which can actually help getting the whole playing group sort of in line with, this is the behaviour we want to present online. This is obviously the behaviour we don't want to present online. And it's really, driven by the players. It's not driven by myself or a media department. When they own it, it becomes far more effective than a piece of paper that's put up in the locker room and them told off all the time. So there are a couple of things we're doing in the training space. If you're interested in either of those pieces, whether it be the athlete training piece or the grassroots club training piece, please reach out, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. Before I wrap up, again, just a call out, if you've got a question from today's episode, or there's something that you would like me to answer for the Q&A episodes that come out later in the week, please send in your questions, sportsgeekhq.com/questions. Fill it out. You'll get a shout out on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. And until next week, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Join Sports Geek Nation access to exclusive Slack and Facebook groups with regular Q&A sessions with Sean Callanan. Go to sportsgeeknation.com to join. Need help with your digital rate card? Not sure how to price your assets? Is there a disconnect between digital and commercial? That is where Sean works best, in digital divorce counselor mode. Book a time for a call with Sean to discuss the Sports Geek process. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.